Hello, everyone. Welcome to MP University. If I'm sounding a little more bassy and melodious than normal, it's just a cold. It's almost gone, so don't worry about it. But I may go mic silent there for a minute to choke my lungs out or something like that. But like I say, it's much better than it has been. So let's get started here. I want to share this screen, and I want to do my presentation here. And then I have to switch it back because it always goes the wrong way. Okay. So Harold said we're talking about MP development from Notepad++ to VSAE. So we'll talk at some of the various tools and techniques that we can use. Now, you can start from Notepad. You can go with XML editors like Notepad++ or Visual Studio. You can use the Visual Studio authoring extensions, which provides another higher level of authoring there. Of course, Silect would like you to buy MP Author or MP Author Pro or MP Studio. And that's what I'll be doing with most of my demo. I hope no one's too surprised at that. We'll also be discussing fragments and how they fit in with the Silect portal and what you can actually do with PowerShell. Once we've gone through all of that, we're going to do a deeper dive into solving a real problem. And as all of you would know, SCOM is really good at monitoring computers and applications and systems, etc. So I was looking for something different to do this time. And so what we're going to do is we're going to create a management pack that monitors prices for replacement hardware and would raise alerts when a particular product goes to a good price or a critical alert, actually, if they go to an excellent price. You can use the notifications to ensure that that gets to you. So even if something goes on sale at Amazon at 3 a.m., you could actually get notified and order it immediately. I'll just give you a bit of heads up there. There are some tricks with trying to scrape HTML from within SCOM. And I haven't got it 100% yet, but I've got enough to demo here. And as a proof of concept, I think it's still a very valid thing. So the first thing to do is look at the basic Notepad. Good old Notepad's been with Windows since Windows 1.0. It might be the first program that was ever written for Notepad, for Windows, and it continues to evolve. The reason you can use Notepad is because management packs are just XML. XML, of course, is a text format, so any text editor could be used. Now, to do that, you got to be very familiar with XML syntax and, of course, the management pack schema. And while you could use any text editor to do just text editing of a management pack, it's going to take you a long time. You're going to make a lot of mistakes. I cannot recommend this at all. However, there are times when you may need to tweak an existing management pack, and a tool like Notepad or Notepad++ is a perfectly valid way of doing that. With XML editors, you no longer have to concentrate on the XML syntax, and an XML editor that understands the management pack schema is going to give you a lot more help there. And the reality is we actually have made quite good use of Visual Studio and Notepad++ to do XML editing when developing management packs. It's a viable way to do that. I wouldn't want to create one from scratch, but for editing them, to make changes for existing things, is quite a viable way to do it. Now, as I mentioned, any other XML editor can be used, but those are just two that are very well known. Notepad++ in particular is freeware. You can download that anywhere, anytime. There's no licensing cost. Your organization may have rules about using freeware, shareware, but Notepad++ is almost ubiquitous these days. You do want an XML editor that can understand the MP XML schema, and that will make life very much easier for you. Excuse me, I'm just going to take a sip here so I don't choke. The worst thing about a cold is how long it can hang on. Even though you're feeling fine, you're not manifestly sick, but then you start talking, your throat goes dry, and all of a sudden you're coughing your lungs out. Visual Studio Authoring Extensions is, I believe, the first specific tool designed for management pack authoring. It extends Visual Studio. It is very much targeted as programmers. You're going to still be doing a fair bit of XML editing, but VSAE, excuse me, that was the cough I was worried about. VSAE provides a lot of additional support for doing that XML editing. A lot of IntelliSense is built into it. The way it works is that you build MPX files, which are parts of a management pack. And when you're ready, you literally compile those MPX files into one management pack file, one .xml management pack file. Because it's compiler, it can give you lots of errors and warnings there. There's a bunch of tools built into VSAE, and it's quite a powerful tool. As I mentioned, it works with MPX files, and that's where fragments came in. I will talk about fragments a bit more later, but an MPX file which you're going to create is real easy to create a new one using a fragment, because a fragment is an MPX file, but it has certain parameters that you need to replace the values for. So it's a simple search and replace operation. There's the download link for VSAE, and of course you will be getting all of these slides. Now, MP Author Pro and MP Studio. These are Silect tools that were designed specifically for MP authoring. They're both licensed products. They're wizard-driven. They're very easy to use. You don't have to use much typing. And as you'll see in my demo, you need to use very little typing. It's targeted at IT professionals rather than programmers. There's the download link or the info link for MP Author Professional. MP Studio does all the same authoring that MP Author Pro does, but it adds lifecycle support. And so basically, it stores all the MPs in a SQL database with full version control, much more. If you have more than one developer working on management packs in your organization, you would find MP Studio very valuable. It's your one true source of management packs, highly recommended that way. But MP Studio also provides a lot more in terms of reports, explorers, that sort of stuff. So I do suggest you check it out. There's the link for MP Studio. And we'll be actually using MP Studio for the demonstration, and that's almost chauvinism because that's what I work on every day. Fragments. As I mentioned briefly, fragments are just templates with a small number of replaceable parameters. Now, Kevin Holman, he who must be obeyed, shares a large library of fragments that are freely downloadable. You can use fragments with VSAE using search and replace. You simply add one of the fragment files into your VSAE solution. You go in with search and replace, you find the parameters that need to be replaced, you put in the proper replacement values, and very quickly you're done. You can also use it with MP Author Professional or MP Studio, and one of the advantages there is that we keep the fragments in a in the database, in fact, in the MP Studio database, or the Silect Store database, where it's easier to search for them. And when we're importing fragments or editing with fragments, we have browser dialogues. So for instance, if you needed to specify the name of a service that you want to monitor, instead of having to type in the often internal name, which is different than the one you see in the services control applet, you can just click a button. It brings up a dialog with a list of the fragments, both the internal and the external names. You can even use a filter control to find what you want very quickly. And again, you don't need to type anything. You don't need to possibly make a mistake there. The link below is Kevin Holman's freely available fragment library. Fragments have been very popular, and a lot of companies are using them to create a standardized methodology for monitoring, so consistency, so that, for instance, every application that is looking to ensure that a service is running uses exactly the same fragment, so you know that if it works, they're all going to work, and if it fails, then you need to change it in one place in the fragment, and it'll be working everywhere. Those have been very popular with some corporations. Some other tools we have, the Silect portal and PowerShell. The Silect portal, again, a licensed product, it uses web-based, it's browser-based authoring and monitoring. It uses fragments for authoring, and again, this is a case where you create a curated set of fragments that you make available to your users, and they can import those fragments into management packs, replace the parameters, and be done very quickly. It also exposes a REST API for automating all these functions. So everything that can be done in the Silect portal can also be done through your own automation solutions. And of course, I think as you can imagine, some customers find this extremely valuable. The final thing I want to discuss here is the Silect PowerShell snap-in. This snap-in extends PowerShell, so it has access to the Silect Store database. It also has access to registered management servers. You have commands to create, edit, and deploy management packs and a lot of other functionality there. And that's included automatically with your MP Studio license. Now, just before we get into this, I need to find a mute button here and mute myself very briefly. I can't see a mute button here anywhere. Hello. All right, let's power through it. Our deep dive. As I mentioned, we're going to try something very different this time. So we're going to watch for prices for replacement hardware. Now, everybody's budgets are tight. So even if a budget's been approved, the powers that be are often wanting to ensure that you're getting the very best price for replacement hardware, software, anything that needs to be added. There are hundreds of vendors who are selling these, from Amazon through CDW, direct through the manufacturer, and those prices vary over time and between the vendors. So exactly the same product purchased from Amazon versus CDW may be significantly different. And as we all probably run into, prices on Amazon can go up and down over the course of a day. I'm sure it's the same with some of the other vendors as well. You'd be watching for sales, that sort of stuff. And there are watcher programs for probably all of those websites, but they're all going to be different. So you can spend a lot of time looking for the best price. Now, the SCOM monitors hardware and software, everybody's familiar with that. Let's figure out how to make SCOM monitor prices. So, the architecture of our management pack is actually relatively simple. We're going to create a class with properties for the URL that we want to watch, a name, which is just something that we're going to recognize, this company, manufacturer name, model number, that sort of thing, and a pair of prices, a good price and a great price. And as long as the current price is above the good price, we shouldn't raise an alert. If it's between the good price and the great price, we'll generate a warning alert in this case that, hey, we found a good price. If it's less than the great price, then we want to raise a critical alert. We're going to do a script discovery. It's going to look for the existence of a CSV file. And for each row in that CSV file, we're going to create a class instance. Now, this discovery will run on all machines on your system running Windows operating system. But it'll only do anything on this one or two machines where you have that CSV file. And of course, it only runs once every 24 hours, so it's a very low load on your systems. The class instances that are created, those are the target for our monitor. So the monitor is only going to run on that one or two systems where you actually want to be monitoring these things. So you have complete control over this without needing to create watcher nodes and groups and this sort of thing. The monitor class is going to query the URL. It's going to get the HTML back. It's going to scrape the current price out of it. And then the monitor itself is going to compare to the good and great prices and raise the alerts. And just a bit of a heads up, The scraping portion, I haven't got working perfectly. It's working well enough for the demonstration. I ran into some difficulties with this, and at 2 a.m. I was still fighting with it. None of that has anything to do with SCOM. It's simply how scraping works and how these websites, well, you can actually annoy Amazon, so it seems to stop returning data to you. And also it'll return data differently depending on where the web page is queried from. I'll talk briefly about what I would do to continue to make this work, but since this probably isn't directly applicable to anybody, we won't spend too much time on it. So for our demonstration, we're going to examine the discovery script, we're going to look at the CSV file, we're going to create that class of discovery, and we're going to view the discovered instances. And then we'll look at the monitor script, we'll do the query, look at how we scrape that out. Again, that's a bit iffy at this point. Show how we return all the information in a property bag, and we'll compare it to the good and great prices. So let's take a quick look at our CSV file. So it's got 4 columns: name, the URL, the good price, and the great price. The name, for instance, the HP/Aruba FlexNet 5130. The URL on Amazon, where we want to go and get that data, and the good price, which would be $4,500, and a great price would be $4,000. And just to prove that it works with more than one thing, I've added a second row here, so we're looking at some other device. I have actually no idea what this device is, but it showed up in managed, a query for managed switches or managed routers or something like that. Those pages, those URLs, these are the pages on Amazon. So this is the HP device. And what we want to do is we want to query this, we want to get back this data, and we want to scrape the data because we want that number right there. And the way we do that, and I'll very quickly go through this, is I just use the inspect feature. Here's our information. So this span right here, that's got our price. That's the one we want. So we know it has a class of A-off screen. We also know it appears within a div called core price feature div, this one up here. When I query it locally, that's the structure and that's what I was searching for. It doesn't always work that way, apparently. So we'll come back to that. So for our discovery script, we have some boilerplate here. These first 3 lines are something you would do in every discovery script. And then we log that the script is starting. And this is something Kevin Holman has always mentioned. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't put those in the first place. And then when I started trying to debug it, I realized I needed them. So I put them back in. Related to that, I keep a count of how many records we create. Then I have the file name. Now I've just put this into a temp folder on SCOM. It's called amazon.csv. That's the one we looked at. We're going to say if the path exists, we're going to read the CSV data for each record in the CSV data. We're going to pull out that name, the URL, the good price, and the great price. This expression here is just a programmer's way of finding out if that name actually has some content. Because if we had empty blank lines or something like that, we don't want to be generating bad data there. If we have the name and we presume we have everything else, a better, more robust solution would actually be checking URLs and good prices and great prices to make sure they're all there. Once we find a good row, we create a new instance of this class. And this is how we specify the class name. It's the MP element silect.amazon.class. And then we add various properties to it. The principal name one, adding in the computer name, is fairly standard. And then we have 4 parameters that we want to add to our class: the name, the URL, the good price, and the great price. And we just use the values we took out of the CSV record. Once we've put that instance together, we add that instance to the discovery data. We increment our count, and we loop back to the next rows in the CSV file. When we've done all the rows in the CSV file, We've got one more log event here, and we are also logging how many instances were created. This is our dollar count here. And then the last thing we do is simply return that discovery data to Operations Manager. Now, in MP Studio, let's look at that discovery here. As I mentioned, I've already done this and it's running. So we'll go through with the edit with wizard command, which is effectively the same thing. If we were creating a new one, it would ask these same sorts of things. So it asks us for the script name. We can browse, we can specify the script here. It detects and fills in for discovery the default parameters here. Oh, darn it. I did not mean to click the finish button. Then it detected, MP Studio detected the properties that we've specified in that script for our class and listed the properties. Now, it didn't pick up the types or whether it's a key property here. So I did have to change these from string to double for the two prices and make the name a key property. The identification, it dug that out of the script and it has to match. So it's filled in already. Our base class of local application is fairly standard. The identification is based on the class name, so that's pretty standard. Our target is Windows operating system. You could target something else, but I didn't need to. Run as, we can use the default. Schedule it. Actually, this is scheduled to run once every hour, but in practice, you'd probably do it once every 8 hours or once a day, that sort of thing. It doesn't need to be done very often. The last thing we'd have here is a summary where we could check things and go back and correct things. So for instance, if I wanted to go back and change this to every 8 hours, you would see that it's changed here and finish, and it'll update the thing. So let's go off to our management server here and look at discovered inventory. So here I've actually asked for the target type. I've just typed in Amazon here. I select the Amazon class here, and these are the two instances that have been found. So we have the name here. You might recognize the path here, the URL, and our good price and great price values here. You will notice that one of them is actually in an alert state because the monitor has run successfully for this URL and detected a price, etc., etc. We'll come back to that very shortly. Okay, I'm going to have to hurry here. For the monitor, we're actually going to pass in all those parameters. We're going to do some boilerplate here for the mom script API. We're going to detect who are being run as, and we're going to log that the script is starting. We're going to log who it's run as and the parameters. We're going to add all those parameters to the property bag. This is a good practice to get into because it means that the property bag that the monitor gets back from the script has all the information that's available if you need it. And this, of course, can be useful in your alert information, etc. Here's where it got a little bit fun. I was having real trouble getting this to work. So I found this, which forces TLS 1.2 and 1.3 on. I put try catches around the invoke web request. If the web request fails, I log the exception. That actually, I've got around that. And then I log the status code and the raw content length. And this is where I found that it's returning at different length. So I could run this locally and I would get, say, a return length of maybe 1.6 megabytes of data. But when it's run under SCOM on the other system, which is also a Windows 10 system, it was returning a significantly different length, like hundreds of thousands of bytes less or more. And that was sort of messing up my scraping logic, which at first was looking for that div with that core price feature div. I showed you that briefly. So I removed that code temporarily because I don't know exactly what's being returned. And I'm just looking now for this class, this span with a class of a-off screen. I get those matches. If there's less than one, I'm going to set an error state and say why the error happened. And this should be indented properly. I also log an event so I can find the same information. If I did get matches, then I match the groups. I find the price here. I get the group value, which is the price. If it's less than the great price, then the state is going to be great. And I say that we found that with the price. If it's not less than the great price, but less than the good price, then we say the state is good, similar. And if it's neither of those, so it's still above our good price threshold, we're okay, we're healthy, but we found it with nothing special. The final thing we put into our property bag is the price, and we log our script event saying we're exiting, and we return the property bag. So within our monitor, and I want to point one other thing here, to ensure that this was running with a user that had proper permissions, I actually created a secure reference specifically for this. The monitor, and again, we'll quickly go through with the wizard. I select the target was our Amazon class, which was the only user-defined class in this MP, so it was selected by default. I chose the parent monitor run up to configuration. I don't know if that's a good choice here, but it's what I did. Again, we would select our monitor script here. It imports this. It knows that there are these parameters that are coming in here. So when I need to fill in the URL, I can simply double click here, edit, select target, Amazon class, URL, and it put in the proper syntax for that. It took about 2 seconds to do all 4 of those. I have my various health states here. So let's just look at the overwarning, and that is the state equals great. If the state equals great, we know we're in this overwarning condition, which is a critical state. We're going to raise an alert. The that's over error. Overwarning is similar. We're looking for good, and the underwarning, which is a healthy state, is just going to be if the value is okay. This is just identification. I'm just going to leave that alone. I did specify this Silect run as profile. I don't know if I showed it somewhere. The default for this is disabled. Once this is imported, you have to go in and set the credentials used for the profile and then enable it. I'm going to run this every 15 minutes. This is something where I think Amazon was annoyed that I kept querying the same URLs and seemed to stop returning good data. It was only returning something in the neighborhood of 6.5K. It's returning it to the SCOM agent on a different system, and I didn't know exactly what that was. But I think it was simply telling me that I was querying it too often. So I've backed off to 15 seconds. We have our alert here. We're going to generate an alert when we go into warning or error state here. And here's where we take the data that was in the property bag, so we can report our state, the price we found, the item, and the URL, and what the good price and great prices were here. Our summary, and then we could finish. So once that was all done, I saved it, I deployed it to the management server. Our monitor, very quickly go over here because I am getting short. I am actually slightly over time, aren't I? Amazon.
Mike, we do have a bit of buffer after the next session, so.
Okay, thank you. I did have to enable it once I had set up the secure reference properly, and I also changed the good price so that it was within the range of the current price, so we'd get an alert raised. Within administration, all I had to do here for the Silect system account was I actually had created that account, specified the credentials, and then just attach that to the profile here. If you haven't done this, it's a bit tricky, but you get used to it very quickly. The profile is the secure reference. You give it the accounts to use, which is the one I had showed previously, and you can control how it's distributed, etc. If we come back to the monitoring here, you will note that one of these, this ACTI, still hasn't been monitored properly, but the HP Aruba Flex has successfully been monitored. We have an alert raised, and we'll see that in a moment. But here's our health information. There's our name, URL, good, great price, etc., etc. And if we look at our active alerts here, we have this alert. And there's our price is great. The current price is $49.95. By the way, the logic that I'm applying for good and great prices has never been vetted. I may have this wrong. Don't worry about that. This is sort of proof of concept. And if I was going to make this into a production, I'd do a lot more work on it. But excuse me. It does give you all the information you need here. And one of the last things I want to show you is that on that system where these things are running, I do have the events being logged. And I'm just going to resize this. So we should have some, there they were. There's our, no, that's not the one I want. I want the later ones. The 3982s here. 805, yeah, that's when I deployed it this morning. So there's our discovery script running, and honestly, I should be logging who it's running as, but it doesn't seem to make much difference. There's our script is exited, and we created 2 instances. It ran again, I think, because I restarted the web service, the monitoring service. And then we get into the actual monitor running sometime later. So it tells us that it's running. It tells it's running as, and it gives the account that I specified, which is my account on my demo machine. It tells me what system it is, what the device is, the URL, and the good and great prices here. And because I have 2 instances, we actually get these sort of mixed together. This is running for the next device. This is our invoke web request, and it returned 700,000 bytes there, which I think is light. And yes, for that device, it didn't find the span. So it returned with a price of -1, and it's actually returned with an unhealthy state here. For the other one, it actually returned, 1.5 megabytes of data, and I believe it was able to scrape the information it wanted here. Yes. So it found that price. It was able to scrape that out. I don't know why that's not working, but I don't think it's important in terms of this demonstration. And this is just something running again. The point being that while it's not perfect, it does run and it does work. And of course, you could set this up with notifications or whatever else you wanted to do. I think that covers it all.